glad you guys could join us for this discussion on the recent congressional hearing disclosures on ET bodies and technology. How else would you describe it? That was
UFO, I mean, just basically opening up the conversation to that there are actually UFOs and that they did have recovered bodies.
right,
After
and
what,
that also
years
the
um,
yeah,
And craft as well, and craft.
and the other component of this is introducing the idea that a lot of the American tax dollars are going to these dark or shadow projects that where there is absolutely zero accountability. And there are many ways in which this funding is siphoned away from the American people. So that's another big piece of this.
Yeah, and the Pentagon, I don't know if this is relevant. It feels like it's relevant to me. The Pentagon's books have never balanced out ever, and they're like, boku, trillions disappearing. Not maybe not trillions every year, but substantial amounts. I'm sure millions and millions that disappear every year and are unaccountable.
Yeah, great point. That's absolutely true. I've heard that for years. Okay, so what I want to do is before we launch into the discussion about the video itself, because I know a couple of you studious ones took notes, and I did not. So I want to make sure that you have a platform and a voice for all that you want to share around what you learned and what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, and so forth. But because this synchronicity occurred when I opened up Twitter, I refuse to call it by its Elon Musk's new name, which is X for it, which is disgusting logo and energy. But it's how I follow trends and energetics of the collective. So I'm still there. Anyway, it was the very first thing that popped up was this video right in front of my face of Stephen Greer talking about this other viewpoint. And we'll get into how it relates to ours. So I'm going to share the screen.
You will see that I wrote in 1999 that if this goes sideways, they're going to take the disclosure of this subject and flip it into a War of the Worlds, Independence Day, the movie thing, and create global chaos and create a situation to unite the world around some non-existing threat from outer space. Because that was always the plan. Carol Rosin, a member of my team who was the spokesperson for Werner von Braun, the guy who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler, and who then became part of our aerospace industry back in the 45. He warned on his deathbed that they would hoax an alien threat, and it's all a lie. And that was the plan that they had come up with in the 50s. So we're now 70 years into this sort of a long-term plan to create a hoax, basically. So I tell people, yeah, there are extraterrestrials, aliens if you want to call them. There are man-made craft. Those are the ones who are a threat. Those are the ones doing abductions, human trafficking, drug trafficking. They're being misused all over the place. If you look at what we just did at the National Press Club in Washington, you see that on my YouTube channel. We have a Marine who was on a rescue mission after the big Indonesian earthquake and tsunami in 2009. And Michael Herrera and his platoon came across one of these gigantic, about 300-foot diameter, man-made UFOs, offloading weapons, and there were crates. And we later learned, he first thought they were drugs. We later learned from other sources, those were people in there being put into slavery to be used in experimentation.
Meaning human beings?
Human, oh yeah, children, women, yeah. Specific ones, yeah, to be used. So, I mean, these sort of, these rogue operations are a serious problem. And luckily, all that information is being handed over to the authorities at the Pentagon and in the Congress and the White House Military Office that I deal with. But whether or not there'll be a satisfactory action or outcome by the leaders and the political system is to be determined. I don't know. We're doing everything we can. I think everyone listening to this show should write to their senators and their congressmen and to the White House president and say, you need to look into this and the details of it, but also be aware of the false narrative that's going to be presented to you. Because the false narrative is where we run into problems. If the establishment gets convinced that there is this kind of threat, which doesn't exist from outer space, they could pivot the whole world into a situation where, everyone would be in sort of a lockdown situation through the fear of a sort of a hoaxed threat from outer space.
Good. Very good. Thanks for putting that on there. I think that's perfect.
Sure. Yeah. It seemed to want to be a part of this conversation because it was right there on my screen. So just want to say, let's incorporate all these viewpoints. So if anyone wants to begin, like maybe an overview of what you found in watching and note taking, kind of your personal impressions or neutral impressions.
I'd like Jeannie to go first.
Yeah, that's what I said. I want Jeannie to go first because she was she put it to my attention. She put it to all our attentions, and she was so eloquent in describing about what was going on because I couldn't watch it until the replay sort of thing. So go, Jeannie, go.
Well, I didn't take notes. I don't know who the note taker is here.
Maybe that's metaphorical or something, because I didn't actually take notes except, in my head.
But I watched most of it live. I came in about a half hour late and I watched most of it live. And, for me, I'm more concerned, I guess, or more interested in, and maybe this is where you were going a little bit, Eileen, about bringing the experiencer conversation to the table, because it's not part of the conversation, or has not been part of the conversation yet. I mean, it is a little bit, and there are many people out there who've been sharing, and certainly grateful for their courage and ability to find their voice in all of this. But I feel that there's so much, and so many people who have been touched by this, who are still afraid. They're still, for various reasons, whether they're literally afraid of the phenomena itself, or probably, my view, more commonly, the fear is really due to societal pressure, fear of ridicule, fear of being cast out. And this is something that really taps into what I feel is kind of my reason for being, not to be dramatic about it, but I really have felt called to, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my rooster. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm like, dude, why right now? But anyway. I have my whole life, and this is common, I think, for all of us too. It's like everything kind of converges to a point wherever you are right here, right now, at any point in your life. And right here, right now, everything that's converging for me is this process of disclosure that seems to be occurring, and all of the experiences that I've had, but then also my journey through understanding what authority means. And I think that is the underlying thread that is running through everybody's subconscious, that is influencing how they absorb this information. It's impacting their ability to share their viewpoints, to talk about experiences that they may have had. And I feel like we've entered this we've crossed over this threshold, not just with disclosure itself, but energetically, for the planet as a whole, that is breaking it all wide open. And we talked a little bit in this last conversation, at least that I participated in, of this wobble that we're feeling. You know, it's like there's no boundaries, there's no container for me to stand in within which I can feel comfortable within myself and feel like I know where I am, who I am in the world, and how to move forward. Because of all of that is falling away, and most of it's invisible. I mean, it's visible in the sense of, wow, okay, these institutions are crumbling and this part of government's falling apart and families are being, you know, have these big rifts in them, but it's invisible because it's still an emotional, energetic phenomena that's occurring. You can't really put your finger on it. And the part that I think is giving us this huge potential for an evolutionary leap that I find just like, you know, this is where I struggle to find words, you know, if I'm talking about my experiences or if I'm talking about this potential that I feel is actually very exciting. It's because of that breakdown. It's because of the lack of walls that we're feeling. It's because that container doesn't feel so solid anymore, or feels so much bigger than it used to, that we're like, I don't know where I am. So, you know, for me, yeah, the hearing itself was like, I mean, I was buzzing for days after that, during the day and for days after that, because it's propelling something, you know, it's part of this breakdown of the status quo, which is just a good thing in and of itself. Whether they're trying to control a narrative and push it in a certain direction, to be honest, it's okay. For me, it's like, I don't really feel a need to call that out so much, or, you know, push against it, because I feel like its role, or it's not that it's it has a role, I need to find a better word, its impact, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is that it will cause people to turn their head. You know, it's like, what's happening, what's going on, you know, my world has changed, I don't understand. And they have to start thinking and assessing and, you know, taking all of this in and trying to figure out what this all means for themselves in their life, what this means for humanity as a whole, what this means for Earth as a planet, you know. And this idea that you know, I feel like I've got all these tangents because my brain is like still kind of buzzing from all of this, and it's hard to pull it all together. But this authority piece that I mentioned, that I feel so called to be part of as far as a new conversation with respect to authority, is because that current of, I need to look to somebody else to tell me what to do. I need to look to somebody else to tell me how to feel. I need to look to somebody else to explain it to me and tell me what the facts are, so I can not be so afraid, you know. And again, it's that fear is palpable and it's very real, but I think if we're able to peel back the layers and really understand that a lot of it has to do with the subconscious need to not be left alone. And it goes back to when we were, you know, living in these small clans or tribes all over the planet, maybe. And, you know, if you do get cast out, the predators are out there. They will be a real danger to your survival. So, you know, that's a very primal fear. And I think it has come to my attention because of my journey through panic and learning how to understand the fight or flight response, and, you know, my work with animals and learning how to literally tame that response within myself and the animals, and develop this relationship. And it in that process, I mean, this has like been a decades-long journey. I said, you know, I was able to see this thread that runs through everybody, and we're largely unaware of it. We're largely unaware of how much we give away our power to make decisions, and our power to know the truth, and our power to trust ourselves in making the next right step. So, you know, everything I just said, I'm like, am I even talking about UFOs? Yes. Yeah, because this is all about, and again, how it all comes together for me is that part of my life journey with understanding fear, and combined with my own experiences that have shown me that the five senses, as wonderful as they are, I love food. I am the biggest foodie out there. They're not telling us the whole story. That's all it is. That's all and that's huge. You know, it's like the more than idea is can't be overemphasized. We are more than. Reality is more than. We're more than we think we are. Reality is more than what our five senses tell us. Our place in the universe is more than we could even fathom. So this time in Earth's history, or whatever you want to call it, to me feels like an exciting beginning of a probability line that I've been waiting for my whole life and preparing for. And if we're going to talk about like kind of the nuts and bolts and what does it look like, and are there really other races, and for me it's a Star Trek journey. I'm like, yeah, let's go, because I'm ready for meeting neighbors that have really cool whatever, exciting cultures to learn about, and just the newness factor of that for me is very exciting. Now, is there danger that comes with that? I don't know. Again, that taps back into the fear part of our history that we all have to know. We all have to be able to see it within ourselves, to be able to move beyond it in a way that we're not looking to somebody else to quell that fear, is to be able to know that you have that within yourself. And that to find that knowing is dependent upon this more than piece. And that's why I think the experiencer part of this conversation is so critical, because we are the ones who are going to come out and give those who might not be sure, those who may have only had one or two weird things happen, or have had nothing, and lived kind of the normal human life, if there's any, if there is such a thing, being drawn to conversations like that to kind of open that doorway a little bit more so that they can step through for themselves. So, while the TV fanfare is really exciting, and the developments feel like a whole bunch of high school drama to me, I'm like, I still find a tremendous amount of excitement within it, because of how it is breaking down walls and fences and barriers that have been up for so many years, decades, lifetimes for people, that it's going to enable us to have a new beginning, really, and I know I think I touched on probability lines on a couple other conversations, but it's being able to kind of coalesce that intention of coming from a place that is not fear, and trusting ourselves in a unified way, that we bring forward this new probability of connection, more with ourselves, more connection within ourselves, but also connection to this larger star family that we all know is there. So I don't know if any of that made sense. And I,
way more sense than you think.
Okay.
It's always great. Yeah, it's always great, Jeannie. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, because I just like kind of go, and then I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going.
Oh, great. Liz does that too from time to time. She goes, I know I'm not going to make sense. And then it's like, oh my gosh, she just nailed it.
Okay.
So thank you for that so much. I have to jump in and just respond by saying, I'm getting the nudge to make, okay, we're here on Light Dialogic, a private community. And we used to have these experiencer dialogues videos on Translating Infinity YouTube channel. And I'm getting the nudge to make this public. How do you all feel about that?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I've thought of that recently, because there's been several people that I wanted to put in the way of what we've discussed. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's on a closed platform.
But that was the whole vision to begin with, that we would come together and find our voice and build resonance. So empowering each other, reflecting, mirroring to each other, because so much of what Jeannie just said is like, yes, 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 yes. And this is the voice that is not is invisible, as you were saying, Jeannie. These are my feelings and thoughts too, that it's invisible because soul is invisible here. And soul needs a voice.
Yeah.
And so that's why, if you all agree, I would like to make this a public conversation. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay, great. So, in speaking in response to what you've shared, so much for me, I just want to say quickly that that I resonate with you, Jeannie, and your viewpoint. We as experiencers, and the ones who are aware of our experiences over years, and a process of evolution, a process of pattern interruptions, which is what we'll be talking about on Saturday with the experiencer dialogues. This is what this is for the collective, I feel, is here's your pattern interruption, boom, right? So it's like, talk about it, get the conversation going. It's now real because it's the Congress and the Pentagon, and it's all the real authority people, right?
It's sanctioned now.
Yeah. So whereas experiencers, if they've been engaged with their contact experiences, are learning that we are sovereign beings. And, we have that at our core. And so it's just a matter of remembering, recalling, activating, being that, practicing that, building resonance with that, which is what this community is all about, to support that process. And so here we are focused on the masculine approach and the logical approach, and oh no, but then they're going to come and kill us all, and all of all the fear, because we're not in feeling, we're not in present moment, we're not engaged with the soul. So we're going to look out there to the external reality for people to tell us what to do and how to stay safe, which is the whole point all along for harnessing this narrative. It's always about creating new narratives to keep the collective humanity in fear, instead of rediscovering that direct authority and connection to all that is, to the field, whatever you want to name it. That is what contact for me was about and continues to be about. So that's what I wanted to say. Who else wants to talk?
I'll go. I'm just sort of like,
Yeah.
This has been such a great experience for me to assess for myself what I see going on or whatever. So when Jeannie first sent the message through on our group thing that this was happening, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I was, and I was very, very cynical. I was like, okay, yeah, let's wait for the next shoe to drop. What are they going to do with this?
Yeah.
So then after I listened to it, I kind of saw the other side of it and thought, wow, well, this is actually really, really important. Not for me, it doesn't change anything how I see anything, but for everybody out there, what I've started calling this morning, it came to me as I'm talking to myself, the outworld. The outworld is, it science, the whole science thing has completely changed. The whole religious context has completely changed, potentially. And then there's the man on the street sort of thing and woman on the street who could potentially be changed by this. And then there's us. And so there's well, as you both said, there's the need for, as we've always said, there's the need for our inner authority to be in place, because otherwise it's like the Who song, meet the old boss, same as meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's just like, there's no change. And what we have to do is change. And so all the narratives, and after going, you know, after not seeing it and then seeing it, and I've sort of integrated the both, and it's basically like, you know, you have to have your own experience, you have to have your own inner authority if you're not having the experiences, and just kind of like balance it up and just realize that if somebody is pushing a fear narrative, and I see both of those doing that, the Stephen Greer thing that we saw, and the potentially, if the government gets hold of everything, we all know, I mean, we've all seen Westerns, and you know, we've all seen sci-fi, and the, you know, the aliens, whether they're Native Americans or they're from, you know, Alpha Centauri, are always going to get it. It pisses me off so bad, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. That's how we roll. You know, if there's a gun involved, we're up for it. And that's not going to go well. You know, that's just so not going to go well on so many different levels. And so now it's like, as Jeannie first originally said, and this is what made me want to watch the recording, is like the conversation is now open. And that's the main valuable thing about this. And that conversation has to be seen from an individual perspective rather than, okay, this is how they're telling me how to think about it now, and so this is how I'll think about it. And that is just so pointless. It's just so pointless. And I have a feeling that that's largely how it's going, because there's not been any fireworks or anything like weird and bizarre going on where nobody has come up to me and gone, whoa, did you see that? You know, hearing, this changes everything. Nobody. No, I mean, okay, I live on a farm and I'm secluded and everything like that, but I get out. I have people I talk to, people who know what I'm into. Nada. And that's just so bizarre to me, because I have a lot of, well, of course, the majority of my acquaintances are, as far as they're concerned, not experiencers, right? And it's just like a non-issue. It's, and that kind of like blows me away. That's sort of, so here's another thing that while Ginny was talking that came to me. I've mentioned multiple times before about January 5th, when I saw this little movie of my boxes melting in this room. And it occurs to me now, after having seen this video that you played and hearing Jeannie talk, that that's what everybody else is being asked to do now, is to dissolve their flippin' boxes, to get rid of your fucking categories. Sorry. To get rid of your categories and your filing system, because that's just another outcome or outcropping of what you're being told how to see things. Oh, this is a dream. Oh, this is an experience I had in yoga. Oh, this is a religious experience. Oh, this must be talking in tongues. Oh, this is something, I don't know what the hell it is, you know? And those are some of the many file boxes I had that just got dissolved. And I realized, like, everything is everything. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Any weird anomalous experience that you're having, you're a contact experiencer. It's not just an anomalous, oh, that must have been a Kundalini experience. That has nothing to do with it. Everything is relevant now. Everything has to do with everything. There are no more boxes. And if you're keeping hold of your boxes, you're screwed, in my opinion. In my opinion. So, I feel very passionate about that. Could you guess?
Yes.
And this is where we are. This is what we're doing. It's my life has not changed because of this. I'm still interfacing with my team, my group, people, you know, they keep showing up and, you know, the whole thing. And it's still a wonderful family get together and a learning experience. And I'm like, wow, you should try this. Okay, I'll do this, you know, and just expand. To me, that's what it is. I did have fearful experiences in the past, but they were pretty minimal, because I don't know why, but I think maybe part of it was because I was just so interested. Ever since I was a child, I was interested and knew that there was unseen stuff going on. I just knew it. And when I was 10, I got really depressed because I'd been to school for a few years and I was thinking like, whoa, what if what I see really is all there is? I started to get kind of like sucked into it. And luckily that didn't last too long. But it's a very exciting time, as Jeannie said, that we're moving into. All the disclosure stuff means something. And it's very interesting that to me, in my mind, that this dual disclosure thing that's come out roughly about the same time, in my mind, the hearing in Congress on UFOs, and then the Sound of Freedom movie about human trafficking, boxes dissolving. To me, that's sort of a same thing. And that Stephen Greer has sort of married the potential timeline, married these two together, is very interesting to me. Another huge fear tactic, maybe not on his part. I don't know the man. I don't follow him. I just don't know him. I know some of his work. I just find that curious. Yeah. Because that's very horrifying. I mean, you know, human slavery, no matter which age, no matter who's getting it, everything is terrifying.
Yeah. So I think this is fascinating, and I'm glad you brought up the Sound of Freedom movie, because that is something that's entered into my space whilst we're talking all about this as well, and stuff that I've been, you know, thinking about over the last few weeks or whatever. Is I think there's so many ways I could go with this. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, that's what you always say, and then you're brilliant, so just go for it.
There's so many things that we as a species, general humanity, have absolutely no idea what the extent of the control and the corruption is on this planet. So that for me has been a major thing, and that's been coming through my messages, my contact, and a lot of things over the last few years. So the extent of that is, this is what we're in the beginning of now with the UFO disclosure and the Sound of Freedom movie, is the beginning of the opening of the general public, the general population of this planet, knowing and learning about some of the corrupt, horribly corrupt and evil things that are actually happening on this planet right now. And there are many, many things that we literally have no idea of. And I'm sure each of us have had snippets of info about stuff that's happening. But again, we probably only know the very top of the iceberg of actually what's happening. So I think, again, it's really interesting for me. There's so many ways, I don't know where to go.
Pick one.
Understand. Believe me.
With the authority, so bringing in this question of authority, I find that a really interesting thing, because again, the hearing, the congressional hearing, was based upon really Congress not knowing about a lot of this UFO stuff that's been going on. So that was kind of the basis, the foundation of bringing this to Congress and governmental site. But it's so much more complex than that. There's so much more weaving and webbing of corruption and power and control, and we just simply do not understand the level of it. And authority, yes. So this whole thing about bringing it to Congress, and then Congress going, okay, we didn't know about this, we don't know about that, let's gather the information, let's have people taking accountability, let's, delve into where all this extra funding is going, and we have no idea, let's bring all this into sight for both Congress and the general public. that for me is kind of almost a distraction technique, because again, you're still, like you said, you're still looking at authority. So this authority that once was this government that knew nothing about whatever, now apparently knows about whatever, but there's still the same authoritarian thing. It still hasn't changed. We're still looking to them now to tell us what's true, what's not true, what's actually going on, where the money's going. You know, it's still, again, that outside authority, which again is missing the point of this whole point of contact and ETs and all of consciousness. I'll come to that in a minute, but it's just distraction, distraction, distraction again. However, I agree with Jeannie that it is a starting point for people to begin to question, okay, well, if they don't know about that, then what else is happening? And then, you know, then some people along the way haven't been truthful. And the 3 people that gave the evidence, I don't know whether they are totally truthful or not. Who knows? Because we're not them. So we still don't know the full extent of actually what's going on. You know, and this is kind of the whole point. You know, I'm sure I mentioned this in some other dialogue we had, that looking at it from a human perspective, we're never going to know the truth of actually what's going on, you know, because there is the congressional hearing that happened. Then you have the thread of Dr. Stephen Greer, who's coming up with the, you know, the human trafficking and you know, the fact that we have these reverse engineered craft, and, you know, they are being used in a corrupt way by us humans. It's just missing the point.
Yeah.
You know, the whole point, and this is where we as experiencers, I feel, have such, I'm going to say this, I think we have such an important role in this whole picture. Now, whether we actually get credence for it, credibility, whether we get you know, not poo-pooed and woo-wooed, you're all, you know, whatever, that's a whole different matter. But I feel like we're each here being pulled into some new space here that has a relationship with this whole disclosure thing. And I think we each are trying to find our own way with that now. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Because we all know from our direct contact experiences that this is not about there's an alien from such and such a planet, and there's the other one from that planet, and there's the other one from that planet. You know, because from a consciousness perspective, that is still looking at it from a separate, isolated consciousness. And the whole point of our contact and anybody who has these contact experiences is to do with expanding your consciousness into unity consciousness, so that you become aware of, or you remember that actually you are all of the same one consciousness, same being, same entity.
That's the crux, Liz. That's the crux, is consciousness. That's it.
If you hadn't gotten there, Liz, or anybody, that's where I was going to go next. So thank you. It really is based on consciousness. And so contact, right? Can we all agree contact was to initiate this movement into, oh, there's so much more to us than we were told.
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, Liz. That's a really important point.
Yeah.
I want to build on.
So I'm going to leave that one there, because again, I think we could go off down another path with that one, but I wanted to just swap it over slightly. So also what I'm finding fascinating, and which is what I wanted to say to let you guys talk first, was because I'm in the UK, so I'm in a completely different country to where you guys are. The hearing that was a US congressional hearing to do with the US government. We here in the UK have not had anything like that at all happen here. There has been no admittance from the UK government at this point in time, not official government admittance that there are UFOs, and that, let's say, America is in possession of craft and has had dead bodies, etc., etc., etc. So from a cultural perspective, geographical perspective, we are living here in the UK in a different story to what you guys are living in the US. So it here in the UK has not become a big thing. It's not a big thing over here. So all that you are describing in terms of, you know, people are starting to think and question and, you know, have conversations about it, I just don't think and feel that that is happening here. Most people, I feel, are totally unaware of this US hearing actually happened at all, because it wasn't really in the mainstream media here. So no one was aware of it even happening, unless you're hooked into YouTube or Twitter or whatever, which obviously most people are. But then you're off down a different path because you're already in that space anyway, with those feeds coming into you. But the general Joe Blogs public, I feel here, really have no awareness of this whole disclosure thing going on at all. If people are aware of it, I feel like it is something that people discuss in a pub on a Friday night over a pint of beer, kind of going, oh, did you hear about blah, 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 blah. They'll have a little quick conversation about it, blah, 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 blah. And then that will be it, over, done with, let's talk about the next thing. So over here, I'm finding it a very different feel to what you guys are feeling it over there. However, I obviously still can feel underneath that from a global perspective, from the global collective consciousness, what's happening. And then I find this really interesting, because this is from my perspective in the UK. But again, there's so many other different countries on the globe. There's so many other governments that have not yet admitted.
It's all that sectioned off. It's all put into those boxes. And I wonder if, you know, we all know each other. We happen to be Americans and everything like that. But like I said, most of my acquaintances have never said to me, whoa, you know, I sort of think, generally speaking, that it's just kind of like gone beyond maybe here too. I don't know that, but it's possible.
Yeah. And so coming on to this, and this is really fascinating for me, this whole global positioning about the disclosure movement, because again, you know, like I said, there are so many different countries, so many different governments in those countries. Nobody else yet has come out officially and admitted, no other government in the world has come out officially and admitted that this is here. So at the moment, it seems to be an American-centric thing, if you're looking at it from that perspective. Now, what the other thing that comes in for me is that I feel, and again, maybe this is a cultural thing, but here in the UK, I feel like a lot of people are, if it's not directly affecting them, then they're not going to think about it. They're not going to worry about it. They're not going to put any thought to it whatsoever. So in order for, let's say, us in the UK, for us to actually, as a nationality, begin to have discussions upon disclosure and contact, then there needs to be something that's coming out directly from our government, or there needs to be something that is going to affect all of us here directly in the UK. Which then brings me on to the other whole point of the whole collective global consciousness, that, again, the whole point of this for me is for us as a whole species, as a whole of humanity, collective humanity, to realize that we are more than just a human being who live in different countries, different races, different religions. The whole point of this is consciousness. This is about unity consciousness, realizing that we as a species are one in the same thing, regardless of religion, sexual orientation, gender, whatever. We are all human beings. This for me is also the bigger point of the consciousness, that this is the time really we need to be uniting as human beings, as one collective. So this for me is then interesting when you bring the disclosure and the UFO thing into it, because if you're going to come at it from that angle, then it has to be, if anybody's going to start talking about this as a global humanity thing, again, we're talking something has to happen directly with every single human being on this planet, a bit like the COVID situation, where everybody is affected, everybody is talking about it, it's put in everybody's face that you have to face it and deal with it and do whatever you're going to do with it. So then, of course, then we're looking at what comes to my mind is the whole Independence Day movie. And
Right.
then are we looking at then the alien invasion, as Stephen Greer was trying to put it out there, that these false narratives come on about the false narrative alien global invasion?
Well, I think the narrative is being built here. This is the ground zero for the building of the upcoming show. Is my insight with this, and that comes from contact. So as you mentioned, and you know, all of us experiencers here have been evolving our conversation with this intelligence. And so we have a larger perspective of how this, you know, first of all, as you were speaking to, Liz, the amount, and others here too, the amount of corruption and evil, and I mean, it is mind-blowing. People think they know what's going on, and the things that they're talking about are just tip of the iceberg stuff. It's horrific what's happening here, and it's horrific when you agree to lose or suppress soul, when you agree to suppress the feminine, the divine feminine, the mother consciousness, if you will. So this is what happens as a result of suppressing this in our consciousness. So each of us in our contact experiences, the reason why we come together to talk like this is because we're getting this data because we've been expanded through what was, for some of us, initially terrifying experiences. You talk about pattern interruptions. It's pretty tame to turn on the TV and go, oh, look, honey, they're talking about disclosure in Congress. And, you know, it's like, well, wow. Yeah, well, try waking up to, you know, this presence or these beings saying hi, you know, and people think that's how it works in communication, that they're just like, hi there, I'm an ET from such and such planet, and we come in peace. You know, it's like, no, it's gonna fuck with your whole idea and worldview, you know, what even is reality. And it will do it repeatedly. If you've signed up for this, by the way, if you've agreed to this on a soul level, that this is how you're gonna wake up, and then perhaps help other people understand that you're not seeing reality in the ways that you could be informed in greater and greater and greater ways, right? And so we're just trying to say, hey, while you guys are all talking about whether, you know, other intelligences exist, we've been contacted years ago. We've been trying to understand the language and the communication, and you look at a movie called Arrival, and it's like, wow to you. Well, we've been doing this. But if we try to tell you, it's, oh God, those love and lighters, those, you know, all they do is talk about woo. And it's like dismissal. Do you know what that is? That's dismissal of your soul. That's dismissal of the feminine, because we're not denying that there's evil there. We're actually feeling it and living it and clearing it out in our own consciousness. And that's how we make way to understand more of how these higher frequency intelligences communicate and connect with us and show us that oneness that Liz is talking about. And Jeannie, this is what's happening. And so I feel like it's super important that this voice get out there. Because every one of you are very grounded people to me. You are the most grounded people to me. And you're talking about contact with non-human intelligence. So that's important. It's important to get this voice out, this balanced, constantly integrating, constantly asking the questions. There's no dogma here. It's constant movement and evolution of, revelations after revelations of who we actually are, right? As human beings, not as experiencers. I'd like, Maggie, did you have anything that you wanted to say or ask? Because Maggie's kind of like our representative here of, she's been following the experiencer dialogues over time and has an interest in it. So if you have anything that comes up, you're invited to jump in and ask or contribute.
Well, I guess at this point, the only thing I mean, as each one of you spoke, I mean, I could just feel the resonance. And when Jeannie first spoke, when she was talking about, and again, and I don't know if Jeannie was here when I had mentioned this in the beginning, that I haven't watched any of the hearings. I don't typically watch the news. I've just heard little rumblings about that this is happening, but don't have an opinion on it. Don't have I'm just kind of neutral. I guess I'm not sure how else to describe it, but what I felt even before was, if anything, without listening to anything, was that bit of excitement of, ooh, now things are going to get shaken up. There's been some of that, like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. How are people going to, are these some of the barriers being, expanded or crumbling or broken down or whatever you want to call it. So I've definitely had the sense of that for sure. And then it's funny, I should have taken notes because as you guys were talking, and then when Zuzana was talking, there was things that she said that I definitely resonated with, but I didn't jot it down. But one of the things that comes to mind is when, how did you word this? Like when there was a time in your life when you were young and you were like, God, is this it? Is this all there is? Surely this can't be. I got to go the rest of my life in this world that, and then the kind of, knowing there must be more. That for me, then, it was more, but there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this. Nobody's talking about it, but there's got to be more. And then there's the belief that I got so conditioned that, oh my God, this really is all there is. And then the awakening, then more awakening comes. And that's through contacting people like you and hearing from other, experiencers that there is more. Oh, I knew deep down there was more. And now I'm hearing from other people. So that, that's just one little piece of it that resonated with me. And then when Liz was talking, one of the about this whole thing being missing the point, like watching these hearings and what are they going to tell us? What are they going to reveal to us? They're going to reveal to us whatever they feel like. I mean, they're not going to tell us the truth, not the whole truth. And so, it's just like, as I'm hearing these things, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And so anyway, but the whole thing in general has just been very fascinating just to hear everybody talk about it. And that's really the only comment that I have to make. But I guess for me, more on a more personal basis, I feel like all this stuff that's going on out there, I don't really need to know about. It's interesting. It's kind of like watching a movie and, watching, and not that I don't think it's real. It's just that I feel like what the changes that are going on inside of me, the revelations I'm having, and the discarding the boxes being dissolved and the files being thrown away, all that's happening to me as a result of what's going on out there. So I'm paying more attention to what's going on with me. And then when I hear from you guys about what's going on out there, it's like, oh yeah, the same thing's going on with me. I just don't know the details of it. I'm not listening to the news or, I don't know if any of this makes sense, but
so valuable, so valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see you guys nodding. It's fantastic. Thank you for your.
Thank you for allowing me to listen and then just absorb all of this. It's been wonderful.
Your voice is important. Thank you so much for sharing your viewpoint, what you're seeing and feeling and experiencing. Jeannie, let's swing back to you. Did you have any more after everyone's yammered on and with all their excitement? And there's so much to talk about, and there's so many directions we could go.
I did, and they're all gone at the moment.
Oh,
I know that one.
I was, yeah, when Liz, when you were talking, I was so feeling that there's so many directions I could go with this. And I was feeling my own pulls on different threads for me. And now it's like, you're like tossing the ball back to me. And I'm like, I don't have a clue what any of those were. And I don't take notes. So,
I don't
you
either.
know, it's definitely an in the moment flow for me.
Okay. Well, everyone, let's do freestyle then. I just wanted to check back in with you before we went freestyle, and whatever comes bubbling up. I do want to keep in mind that the whole intent of this conversation was to discuss what's going on with disclosure with the United States government. And I loved your perspective, Liz. Thank you for sharing that, hey, nothing's going on here in the UK. That this is all primarily, that's valuable to me. Like, oh, this really is all primarily the United States. Isn't that fascinating? And it's my instinct that tells me that this is where the next big show is under production. And so anyway, I just want to open the floor then to whatever anyone wants to share on the topic of being an experiencer and what is happening in government disclosure.
I wanted to repeat what Jeannie said, because I have exactly the same. There's so many times that you were all talking and there's so many threads that I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And then you come back to talking and you're like, blank. Totally
Yeah,
blank.
and that's how our consciousness is being changed, right? It's
Yes.
like, it's so multidimensional now.
Yes.
And it's so exciting to be able to talk out loud about the changes that are happening within us. And that's the whole impetus behind bringing us together for as long as we've been talking, to be the mirrors for each other, because we empower each other through that, right? So instead of just interacting, like I don't even interact on Twitter, because I'm just kind of like this, hey, excuse me, and all this male dominated patriarchy, and oh, this person's, he's an asshole. He's not telling the truth. It's clear he's not telling the truth. Well, why isn't he telling the truth? So it's just a bunch of men fighting with each other. And and from what I can see, the women are invited in, but only if they behave like men. You know that one?
oh, yeah.
So this voice, of women here who are actually experiencers, who have a lot to share about the conscious evolution of this contact. We're invisible, and I want to, here's how it works with remembering. So this is my note taking. What Jeannie was saying earlier, and now I just lost it. Shit. See, that's the thing about when you try and do a backstory to, okay, let me explain this first, then you come back to it.
Right.
It's gone. What was I just saying? Maybe I can pick it up again.
Shit.
Oh, great. No, it's like a different kind of, it's a multi-dimensional awareness. So everything is happening at once.
You were talking about the women not getting the word in, that it's all this male thing, and that it's important for
Thank you.
the experiencer.
Threshold. Thank you so much. Threshold. Jeannie, you talked about this in the beginning. So the way that I've been shown in my third eye with this communication is we are primarily standing on, we are in the new paradigm. Let's just put it that way. We've been grown into the new paradigm. And now we're getting used to this multidimensional communication and way of being that is natural, our natural state. And then we have to try and yell back across that, threshold. Hey, there's a different perspective here, but I can't seem to reach you because you don't have this active in your awareness. So I'm just like this annoying little mosquito or something. Like, can you hear us? Yeah, I have a high-pitched voice. I'm a woman. Sorry if that offends you. But I have something to say. We're already growing and expanding beyond this limited view. And you just want to keep arguing inside this limited view about what reality is. Change your consciousness and you will see, and then we'll be in your reality and you'll hear our voices, and it'll harmonize with your voice. And it's an amazing thing. Try it out, give it a whirl. So that's what I wanted to say that referenced back. Thank you so much, Susan. That was really helpful.
I was appalled that I dropped the thread too, because I usually pay really good attention, but I did get it. Yay. Yes, I wanted to also get back to that consciousness point, because that's everything. That when I read or see things, and this is certainly one of them, there's for me a vacuum of concept of what consciousness, maybe not what consciousness is, but how it works. So there's that whole cyclical thing that is not on the table ever. It's like we're on the other side of when we had the last big thing happen, on the other side of the big year, 12,000 years ago. And here we are again. And, if you understand about the movement of it, that consciousness goes down and we're at the nadir of consciousness. And so anything that we come up with is going to be questionable because we're coming at it from a fucking stupid perspective, because we don't have the perspective that we could have or will have eventually and did have at one point because of this cycle. So if you're thinking that we're the pinnacle of culture or the pinnacle of society and that science is everything, you're wrong, because we're at the bottom. It's going to take about 8,000 years for us to get back up to the top of the zenith of consciousness, and then it all just kind of keeps going again, And so without that part in the dialogue of what's going on, without that awareness out there on the table that this is what goes on, there's like holes in everything. It's just like just stuff is flying by, and important stuff is flying by because there's nobody to catch it. There's those holes. It just keeps going through. And I don't know why I happen to have an awareness of it. It was given to me like in 2013, they started downloading this stuff to me. And I thought, wow, isn't this interesting? All this stuff that I'm learning. And then I finally realized that it was actually download stuff. I didn't even know what that was until then, 2013, when I realized, oh, wait a minute, something's going on. Somebody's working with me here, because I'd get this great idea, I'd write it down, and then it would be corroborated outside. I'd hear a talk or have a book or something like that. And that happened after a while, for a while. And then I started realizing something's going on here. Somebody that I eventually started calling my team are working with me.
That's a common theme that please forgive me for interrupting.
No, not at all. This is a conversation
with us, that we don't go to the external and say and read about something and go, oh, that thing, and then try to make it happen within us. This is what my whole book is about, by the way, is the experience first, and then trying to find it in the world, like what you just articulated, Susanna. And then when we find each other like this, which is such a blessing, it's like, oh, thank God, because I'm an internal to external person. You guys are too. It's like, well, isn't it fabulous when we get that confirmation or validation that, oh, this is a thing. This has a name, right? That's huge. It's like, I liken it to people who have, like, on the other side of things, like have a disease, an unknown disease. It doesn't even have a name. It's so rare, right? And then finally some doctor tells them it's called da-da-da. And there's about 12 people in the world that have it. And it's like, oh, thank God, I'm not alone with this.
Yeah. That's such a big thing, is that we've been alone for so long, and we're not made to be alone. We're not made to be alone. I do pretty good with it, but we're really not made to be alone. When we all came together 3.5 years ago, that just changed my life. That just changed everything. Yeah. So there's this bigger over picture that, like, not only is the narrative not including soul or spirit, within that concept is the concept of consciousness. It's all part of that thing that is just not being ascertained. It's not being apprehended. And it's such a big part of the whole picture. How can we go forward knowingly, consciously, healthily, balanced, without the whole story, or not the whole story, but more of the pieces?
You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So you're talking about everyone's in their head and they don't know that they're just in their head. Liz was talking about, everyone, needs to have this direct experience, basically. Sorry if I'm butchering that, Liz.
No, that's cool.
This is the felt experience. This is the embodied experience where you feel it, like this communication. People always want to go to telepathy in the head, and they're talking to you in your head. No, they're talking to us in light inside of our bodies, in our cells. And it lights up, and it's like you just know stuff. And then you can get the visions and you get the downloads, and it's like, oh, downloads, is that what they call them? Is that when everything just comes at once? It's like we're so naive.
I remember when I first heard that word related to what I was experiencing, it was like, whoa, yeah, because when you have a word, see, like we're humans, we're in 3D, and when you have a word to describe something, like your analogy of the disease thing, Eileen, when you have a word to describe it, it makes everything okay, because you have a handle. Then you have a handle that you can then spring off of, go forward, mixing my metaphors there, but you can do something with it. And as much as we've all had problems with language and describing what we're experiencing, it's what we've got to work with.
Right, exactly. Bingo.
Can I jump in again? Because there's so many things I'd love to respond to. I'm sitting on my hands, just kind of going. There's so many things. I'm just going to mention a couple, and because there's something else I wanted to just kind of come back to as well. But the one thing about you were saying, Eileen, I just wanted to mention was the whole finding each other in terms of experiences and being from an inside person, out person. You wrote something on the Light Dialogic community recently, something about the fact that you've always been, and everything has been experiential for you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, for me, that was like, do you know what? I'm so glad you said that, because that is exactly how I have felt my entire life, that I experience everything, and yet you're around people who don't experience it, and it's all in the head, and then you get all this conditioning and trying to fit in and
confusion, yes,
stuff going on. So I just wanted to bring that up, that this is all about pure experiencing and being able to be with that experience enough and to embody enough that you can then find your own language to begin to talk with others about it. And actually, when you do that and you come together like we do, that we're all we're all feeling from this same field and bringing the language in together from this field, then that is really where the exciting stuff happens, and the exciting conversations, and also the exciting experiences of the resonance, the pure resonance that's there. So there's that. But I just really wanted to, I've got to get this out because I've been trying to hold on to it for ages. So before I forget it, it's kind of linking in what Jeannie was saying right at the beginning, and then some of the stuff that I was talking about, and actually what you guys were talking about was coming back to this whole, well, I'm going to say fear before I forget it, which is what Jeannie was talking about, relating to all of the corrupt stuff and the pure evil stuff that's happening on our planet right now, and the fact that we are in the beginning of all of, I'm not saying all of it, but the beginning of some of this now coming out. And this is going to continue over the next, I don't know how many years, that more and more and more of this stuff will come out to the general humanity. And we are going to be totally horrified at what is going to be being revealed to us. But the whole point of this is to completely disrupt us as a humanity, as a collective species, from being in the head and being completely reliant on external sources to tell us what to think, what to believe, what to do, how to feel. The only way as a collective we're going to move out of that consciousness, out of the head consciousness, out of the masculine patriarchy which has been there for so long, the only way, actually it's not the only way, but one way of doing this is to bring out all this horrible stuff that's going on, because each one of those will dislodge each one of us. Then there'll be so much coming out, you don't necessarily have to know everything that's going on, but something will touch you, and then there'll be a number of things that will touch you, and then that will grow to the point of your life will be interrupted, your reality will be interrupted, because God, there's so much out there. Where do I turn? Where do I look? Who do I look to now to show me what to do, where to go, how to think, how to see? There's going to be so much stuff, you're not going to know where to go. So the only answer is to go within and to feel, to come back to the feminine, to reconnect with our natural way of being and our natural way of sensing, and the more expanded sensing that we are, to remember all this, because that is going to be our guide. And for us, it already is our guide. This has been our process of the evolution of the consciousness, of the contact experiences we've had, has to be so that we can come back to this feminine nature, this feeling nature. So it takes us out of our heads and back into the body, into the feeling nature. Our way of doing that has been to have these contact experiences. We obviously agreed to that before we got here, but not everybody has those experiences. So what else do they have? One way of doing that collectively is to bring up all the horrible shit that's going on, so that everybody is dislodged, so that the only choice is for people to go in and to try and explore what is within each of us.
Amen.
Excellent. Yeah, it's the next level of shock treatment.
Yeah. So and this is the other thing, it's like, I know some of this stuff that we talk about can be perceived as us fear mongering, or just being doom and gloom, or, you know, oh my God, the state of the world is just awful, which it is, don't get me wrong. But there's a bigger picture to this. There is an absolute bigger picture to this. You know, that the horrible stuff there is one, it may not seem like it, but it is one small part of the much bigger picture that's going on here, which is for us to return to this feminine nature, the feminine feelings, the divine mother. But also another part of the process is, you know, let's not completely diss the masculine. The masculine has its place. It absolutely has its place. It's just being used completely and being corrupted so much that it has been distorted to what the actual true masculine is. So part of this process, both individually and collectively, is to, first of all, come out of the distorted masculine to re-find our feminine. From that place, then you can come back to the masculine, but from a different perspective.
Actually, I was just going to put it that way, Liz, that it isn't about, there's nothing we can do about healing the masculine until we restore the feminine. And then through that restoration, we go, oh, now I see what the divine masculine is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, we can't make the divine masculine happen until we remember and recall, you know, this mother consciousness, this mother presence.
It's a different perspective. It's a different energy altogether. It's foreign energy to us. And interestingly, in the last week, my team have given me the next task is to work with 6 different divine masculine personalities that just happen to be in all 5 of the 6 happen to be in the art project that I just finished. And it's not a coincidence. It's not an arbitrary timing. You know, we're talking about it right now. This is what needs to happen. This is what's online right now. This is what some of us are bringing through. And this is what I realize that I've done and we've all done is that we work with energy and we bring it into the world and then it's available. It's kind of like it becomes, it comes into the Akashic record for, you know, lack of a better term or anything like that. You know, I realize that that's one of the things that I have done. And I know that you guys do that. And it's so interesting to see it from that perspective and to observe the rhythm now. From where I am now, I can observe a rhythm and I have trust in the process and in the rhythm, and I don't try to push, you know, I don't try to you know, manipulate or try to get, oh, I should be doing this, you know, I should be here now. It's just like I just kind of like hang back and the, you know, the team shows me what's up and then I go for it as best I can, you know, in my way, and usually that's through art. And so what Liz and Eileen you're saying is absolutely perfect and happening right now. It's up for us all right now.
Yeah. I'd like to highlight what happens. I've always been super ultra aware of when we use particular words that have already been weaponized. And it is when you use the word my team or the phrase my team, I already feel people watching this rolling their eyes. So how do we do that?
I never liked using that term, and I don't know any other term.
I'm just asking the question because I've used that phrase.
I know.
From phrase
I agree.
I even read people and go, what phrase would land with them? I'm like reading energetically and okay, I think I'm going to go with angels. I'm going to go with angels. Oh, it landed. Yay. They didn't roll their eyes. Judge me, right? So it's like we're so actively trying to reach people that we have to read them first to understand their language before we can pick and choose the words. That's how I do transmissions. It's whoever's with me in the group, those are the words that are picked, right? If I try to say something, you know, just translating frequency, if I try to say something that isn't going to land with this particular group, or it will land with more than not, my body will stop, my voice will stop, and it'll be a pause, and it'll be reframe. Okay, you know, and then it's like, and that's how this communication works with this multi-dimensional intelligence and language.
Yes.
I just have to laugh when I look at like a Twitter feed, or I'm not on any other social media really, but how people just assume that their little frames that they were born into, and this very tiny world that they have been programmed within, just within this tiny spectrum, that they think they can just transfer that and talk to aliens. You know, it just boggles my mind. It's like, you better start talking to experiencers, because you're never going to figure this out unless you embrace the viewpoint of someone who is actually growing into conversation, right? We have to grow and work through a bunch of shit that's inside of us that we've been programmed with, which is part of the process, right? From the beginning for me was, here, you know, here's how it's going to go. You're going to forget, and then we're going to meet up with you later. And when we meet up again, we'll have to try and help you with what you've stuffed inside of your, you know, what you've blocked, all the blocks that you've built, all the walls that you've built, so that you could fit and exist into this reality. No, we've got to work with that now. Let's clear this stuff out. It's not easy work.
The way that I now do it, and because again, I think we are here for a reason. Anyway, let's not go down that path. What I was going to say was, the way that I now describe myself, and I never have done. So my process with the beings that I've been talking to, and it's all other aspects of me. All of this is other aspects of me. So if I am, let's say, if I'm looking at it from the human perspective, and I am in conversation with an ET from, let's say, Pleiades, that's not the way that I have ever looked at it, nor have they ever given that to me.
That's right.
They've always given it to me as, this is, we are you, you are us.
Right.
So
but how do we go there when we haven't even built the steps to get there? Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, these are aspects of us.
These are other aspects of us. But you see, this is really interesting for me. So coming from the somatic practices as well, there's a really interesting little exercise that I did that kind of almost, again, just clicked with me to help me understand and to integrate and embody this. So if you put your hand behind your back and you wiggle your left finger, sorry, I've got my right hand behind my back, I wiggle my right finger. So if you do that now in this moment and have this experience, okay, so you put your hand behind your back and you wiggle your right finger. Now, how do you know that you're wiggling your right finger?
Because I feel it.
Right. And that finger is part of you. That is not separate to you. That is not my little finger. That is part of me. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the whole basis, foundation of the consciousness. So let's bring it back to consciousness. This is what we're saying about the consciousness. This is about feeling that I can't see my right hand behind me, but I know that it's there and I know that I'm moving. How do I know that I'm moving my right finger? It's because I feel it. I sense it. Mm-hmm. It's the same process that we have with our own bodies, that we have with the other aspects of ourselves that sit in other frequencies that we can't see. They're not physically there, but we feel them. Right. So exactly. I feel it's really important that we begin to have these conversations where we don't try to fit in our language to where the other person is at. Right. Not anymore. I feel we are in this moment now where we need to be bringing these new perspectives to people, even if they have no idea what the hell we're talking about. 100%. Even if it doesn't resonate with them, it doesn't fall with them in any way. We need to speak this language now, because this is where we're bringing it in from the field, and it's pure resonancy, pure frequency that's coming through. Right.
I agree, Liz, but I have to say that sometimes I pop into 30 years ago when I'm talking, you know, or pop into 20 or 15 years ago. on this journey. And you are absolutely correct. We are in a climate now where we can do this, and we must be doing it, because I don't have any more energy. I have no more flow. And I know I've heard others say this in our conversations, that the flow just stopped. No, we're not going to reach anymore. It's not up to us. This is what's changed recently. 100% agree with you, Liz, that if people want to know about this, they're going to have to do the reaching now.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. We have extended so much energy, and we have been shouting and hello, we have so much to share, and ignore. Fine, that's fine. But now the flow of this cosmic, multidimensional communion is saying done, and you can feel it stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's like, but now what, and then a bit of a panic, in this process of shifting. It's like, but this is what I've always done, this is who I am, this is why I'm here, right? What are we doing, what are we going to do now? Just keep listening, because now you're just going to be who you are. And if people are interested in that, they can reach and ask.
Yeah.
And Eileen, you have a different sort of role than me for certain, or many of us, but me for certain, that you're much more in the public, and you're really service to humanity oriented. I'm service to the field oriented, and I've known that for quite some time. And so that's a different energy. And I'm really glad that I don't have to do what you do, because that's a hard row to hoe.
It is, and it shocks me more than any one of you would be shocked. It shocks me that I'm in this position, because this is not who I am. I was the behind the scenes person, like, please don't look at me, don't listen. I'm just going to fade into the, wallflower kind of existence. But then this energy just flows and says, we're doing this now, and create this now. And then voila, here we are talking to each other. And that was the number one mission, if you will, drive, passion, was to bring us together so that we could amplify each other's voices and share it and perhaps be heard. But there's never any real big attachment. There's no like, oh, you fucked up, you failed, you couldn't reach anyone, sorry. No, every bit helps. Every bit helps in helping people to, giving them more avenues to possibly, land on, like, oh, a synchronicity. So in order for synchronicities to happen in this way, just like, that Stephen Greer video I shared, somebody has to create that so that I could land on it and go, oh, thank you. We need to include that in today's conversation. It's not that I think Stephen Greer is perfect and wonderful and I bow to everything he says. I don't agree 100% with any of these voices, but you do hear the resonance of truth when you hear it and feel it. And that's the way these beings talk, is through resonance. So that's how you know what is true as a sovereign being, as a sovereign connected being who understands what this authority, inner authority is it's not the ego authority, it's the divine authority that you're once again fused with and in process of fusing with. It's a process. So thank you for saying that, Zuzana, and I appreciate all that you do and the things that you're passionate about and what drives you. But I think all of us could probably acknowledge here in some way that something has changed in the past several months. It's been building up to it over years, but it's changed in that our role is to make ourselves available in some way, shape, or form to say, yes, hi, I am this person who's had these experiences that might be similar to you, and here's what I have learned and what I continue to learn about who we are and where we're headed, that may be different from what you're being told. So each one of our voices is important. And I know there are so many more of us, but this is who is coming together at this point. Some could not join us today. So we acknowledge their voice along the way with this group as well. But I'm getting a feeling that this is where the energy is going, that we, at a certain point, whether Zuzana, you want to be a part of that or not, it's important at some point when it's the right moment. And maybe this video, putting it out in public, is going to be kind of a test, and I don't care if everybody goes, they're crazy, they're stupid, they're whatever. It doesn't, I don't take that personal. It's like, oh, you're not ready. Okay. But it's here when you are. It's here. If you want to listen with new ears and see with new eyes, you might perceive something differently. Once you've, as Liz mentioned first, once you have that experience that interrupts your patterns, and that breaks you open to some degree, that you can feel and perceive something different than what you've been inside of. And as far as we could go on, and I think we're going to have to bring this one to a close so it doesn't get too long, especially if we're want to share it. There's so many topics to cover, like the 13,000 year and 26,000 year cycles roughly. And what happens, is it a reset, a total reset, and end of, destroy this earth? And so those who are engaged and who are becoming higher frequency, multidimensional beings, this is why we come here. I explore all those things inside of myself and in dialogue with these beings all the time. And does that really matter? I'm not sure that I don't need to come out and say things like that. What's more important is that we just speak from honestly what this kind of life has been like, and what we're learning about not just us, but about human consciousness and about our divinity in form. And what does it mean that artificial intelligence is, and I've been informed about this quite a bit. These are some of the topics I'm just throwing out for next time. They've always, there's been an urgency around this. Do not introduce artificial intelligence to someone who does not embody soul, who does not have heart. If you have those beings in control of artificial intelligence, it's over. It's just over. That is the trajectory for evil, basically, which is separation from all that is, from our source. So we sit here at this intersection, at this these different pathways that will diverge from this hub, and I'm not going in that direction. I'm just here, and I know you guys are, and I know others are too, just to say, hey, you have a different choice here. Get to know who you are, right? Remember who you are. Restore your sovereignty. Restore that true sovereignty. It's not going to come from Biden or Trump. It's not going to come from DeSantis. It's not going to come from any of those people. Sorry, Liz, I'm speaking United States insanity. Everybody, what the beings have shown me is that everybody is vying for that management position for the next cycle.
Yeah, it's the last grab for power.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take the floor for so long. Any closing thoughts from everybody?
I just had a couple of things I wanted to say. And, you know, for me, when I would watch videos like this, I always like to be left with something kind of actionable. You know, what can I do if I'm curious or if I'm wanting to learn more? Something that Liz was talking about was this idea of being in the body and embracing the experiential part of our growth. It's all about reconnecting with the heart, right? Which is what we're talking about. And, you know, everybody gives it a different word or different phrase, a different term, divine mother, the feminine, divine feminine, but it's really about that feeling space and reconnecting with the heart. And an example that I like to, I don't even know that I've shared this out loud. I know I've written about it, but that it just feels like it has the potential to kind of be a powerful little tool in your toolbox. Again, we're going back to language. So the word surrender, what is the word surrender? And right now, being in this new age, and I feel it's the age of light, you know, it's like somebody turned the lights on in the middle of the night and we're looking around. It's like, oh my God, this is a freaking and it looks really ugly, but it's okay. It's really okay. You know, and now it's about learning how to clean up our mess and recognizing these fear threads that run through our stories to be able to transform them and release them and grow and expand and experience what that expansion of consciousness really is. So this example, the idea of surrender, every interaction that we have, every relationship, and whether that be like a close relationship with a family member or a partner, or just a casual relationship with a grocery store clerk or whatever, it's a dynamic that we can play with and start to feel through. So is this somebody who has this authority over me, or that I have this sense that they have authority over me? Is it like maybe a doctor or a bank person, or it's something that's up above me, and I am having this conversation. It can be like a tiny little thing. It's like, this doesn't have to be big world, pressing issues or anything about the narrative that's going on right now, but it's just a practice. So am I surrendering to this conversation to somebody else's opinion or idea or directive because I feel fear? And this is the heart closing in a little bit. And it's a subtle thing. You have to really learn how to, and that's why I say practice. You have to learn how to know what that feels like to be able to recognize it. And then the flip side is surrender while I'm bathing myself, or while I'm experiencing the feeling of love, gratitude, calm, knowing that I'm okay. And every relationship gives you that opportunity to know that, to practice that. It's, and it's subtle, but it's huge. It's like one of those, it's learning a new language, really, because we live in the mind, and everything is centered around words and writing and doing, and these objects and things, and it's a very out there experience in this three-dimensional reality. But what we're growing into in this new evolutionary step that we're being faced with is being able to integrate and reconnect with that feeling aspect. And it's a heart-centered space that we're going to bring together with the mind. So it's going to feel really foreign at first. It's like having a conversation. I want you to move that piece of furniture over there, and we're going to make this look better, and blah, 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 whatever. That's like the external headspace. But just if you tune into what you're feeling in that moment of interaction with that relationship, then you'll start to recognize whether every action or every word that's coming from you is from a place of fear or from a place of love. That's really kind of the two. There's a wide range in between that, but those are the two kind of polarizing energies within us that that really show us what trajectory we're on. And again, that'll tie in for me. It's like, okay, there's your probability line that you're lined up with. And, you know, like you, Eileen, there's what you were talking about. There is some very dark potentials right in front of us, but there's also very neutral potentials right in front of us. There's very expansive potentials right in front of us. And it's all okay.
Yeah.
It's all okay. There are going to be people that cannot look away from that fear and get stuck in it. It's okay, because at the end of this life, we're all going to wake up and be like, oh yeah, right, okay, that was another experience. Okay, where's the next one?
Yeah, here we go. Let's try this again.
Right, or do something different, you know. And I think just finding a little practice that works for you. Know if you have that question and that curiosity and you're wanting to grow, and knowing that there's more out there is key. But then also, and now the thought's gone. I had 2 points, and now I don't know what that second one was.
But the first one was fantastic.
Okay, well, we'll just go with that. I don't know what the second one was. It felt
really
like
No,
tie it all together, but it's gone.
yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. That is very important. And also Liz brought in also that, you know, just this a subtle little teaching, you know, of how you can begin to reorient to, you know, what are we talking about when we talk about that language? So excellent point to leave people with, you know, things that they can do or they can act on. And there's a lot more from where that came from. I know I can feel that. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up. Anything quick from anybody else? Thanks, Maggie, for being with us today and for
Thank you, Maggie.
translating us. Susanna or Liz, any closing thoughts?
No, this was great. I really enjoyed it. Well, maybe one I would say is that something you had mentioned just recently in whatever you were saying, Eileen, is that getting together like this and talking and speaking it out, this is what's really important for us and for anybody, really. And it's not like we're affirming, it's not like preaching to the choir sort of thing. It's like we're mirroring for each other. We're affirming that we're not crazy, you know, because we had a lot of decades of that, you know, and this is why it's so important for us to be together. You know, it's important to have our own inner authority, and in that we find each other.
Absolutely. And it's like we're not finding a name for a dis-ease. We're trying to find the name for ease, because we're stepping into ease. Like, oh, what an unusual feeling, you know. Initially it was challenge and terror and all of that, and now it's like, how do I name this peace and this integrated feeling, and to validate myself and love myself and voice this. So thank you all for being such remarkable examples of this. I love you all, and until next time, thank you.
Sorry, I know you've just closed, Eileen.
Oh,
Sorry.
Damn it, you ruined it, Liz.
I'm so sorry.
I brought it into a bow and everything. Okay.
I know, I'm so sorry. I was just going to say, Jeannie, that's such a wonderful thing to finish on, because, you know, we can all sit here and talk about these quite expansive experiences that we've had to integrate into our experience of being a human being. But really, it does start from the small experience that we are as a human being. And how is that? How are we in our everyday moment, in our everyday lives, regardless of what your life is like at the moment? We all have this opportunity in any moment and in every moment to start to begin to come back into this space. So I just wanted to thank you, that it's such an important point for you to bring up for that. So I thank you for that. Let's bring it back to the simplicity of being human.
Yes.
So thank you.
Excellent. Yes.
I'm sorry, you can close again now, Emily.
Okay. A new bow. I think it's important for me to say that this community is called, it's at community.lightdialogic.com. If you want to have an experience, it might be helpful to you to spend time and in conversation and dialogue with others who have and are growing with it and moving with this unfolding consciousness. So that is one of the things we have on our landing page. I just wanted to mention that if you want to do something, if you want to take action, simply just being, and not, you don't even have to talk, just be in a room with people who are having these discussions and expressing their truth. You start to learn and grow by osmosis, and these happenings can occur for you if the intention is there. That's all I wanted to say too.
Yes, and that's the other point I wanted to make with the the group. And yeah, and another thing with the group thing, is that we help each other to remember. That was my main point, and I forgot it. But we help each other to remember. That's so valuable, so valuable, and it happens every time. It's like, oh, whoa, just new stuff opens up, and I remember, and that's because we're talking together.
Right, very much so, 100%, Susanna. Thank you for that. Okay, is this really happening? Are we closing?
It might really be done.
Yep.
Thank you all so much. I just really appreciate you all. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.